All right, here we go. Welcome everybody to a Friday edition of the Big Douglas Show. To preview Friday, get us ready for the Eagles game on Sunday. And to do that, we brought with me Brian Weinstein. Brian, thanks so much for joining me today.
What's up, Doug? How are you?
I'm doing great, buddy. Last time you were on the show, you were just preparing for year one play-by-play for the Commanders.
Yeah.
Congratulations on the gig 3 years in. What have you learned about being in the booth?
I think like the game's slowing down for me a little bit. There's a lot to think about when you're doing it. There's a lot of preparation that goes into it. But I enjoy every second of it. As you know, I grew up here. I'm a fan of the team. I've been very fortunate to have a lot of the jobs that I've had through the years, whether it's covering the team, being in the broadcast as a sideline reporter the first go around, going to ESPN, and now living literally a dream job. But it's been a really good experience. And, I think year three, I think we're more in a rhythm now. And so I know what to expect. I'm less hyper vigilant about every little thing. And so it's gotten a little easier.
Founder of Empire Media, play-by-play voice of the Commanders, and also still a daily radio host. Do you have one that you prefer more than the other? I mean, obviously, I know that the Commanders gig, as you told me, was a lifelong dream job. Maybe the better question is, what's the difference between the group?
They're all different. The person who's calling the game is different than the person who's doing a radio show. It's funny, like I've talked to players and coaches about this because when you're on the radio, you give your opinions, and that's a semi awkward position for me because I work for the team as well to call the games, and they are separate entities. And so I try to liken it to when you all talk to the media, are you acting and saying the same things that you would say to the players? And you're not. So, it's different audiences. I know what my role is on calling the games. I'm happy to be there. I'm not there to really interject my opinion all that much, really, about much of it. That's where I want Julie in London to kind of shine. I'm there to just call the games. And as a broadcaster, it's, for me, the closest thing that I can get to actually being in it. Like, I feel like it's almost like an out-of-body experience when I'm doing it. And it's really, it's by far the most fun job I've ever had. It's everything I thought it would be. And it's by far my favorite. It's not close. It's the one I never, ever, ever want to stop doing.
What does the week look like for you in preparation? How many times do you look at, say, the game against Detroit? How many times? We all watched that Monday night game. How many times you watch that back in preparation for the call on Sunday?
I was watching the Detroit Eagles game about 15 minutes ago before I started talking to you. It's a lot of work. But I like it. I like football, so it's not hard work. The week it's long. It's kind of never ending. But especially when our opponent plays on a Monday night, I kind of typically tune out, the whole Commanders part of it on Monday night, unless it's our opponent. And we're going to get that 2 weeks in a row with the Eagles and then Dallas again, Monday night against the Giants. So I'm more just watching on Monday, but Tuesdays when it really starts, I rewatch our game, to try to get a better sense of how we played. So I can be informed when I talk to the coaches later in the week. I'm at practice Wednesday and Thursday, if at all possible. Depends on my schedule, depends on when they do it, but I try to go. I have some access to some of the coaches and players, so I want to get as much information as possible. I'm overloaded with statistical information from the team, the league, etc. So I build boards, and then I watch a lot of tape. I watched the games back from last December against Philadelphia. I watched both of the Eagles games this year multiple times. I just want to try to be as ready as I possibly can be for just about anything.
D-Hall out, were you surprised by that? And then also, what has London brought to the booth that you're excited about?
D'Angelo told us right after the season that he was thinking about doing something else. So, I was a little surprised right after the season that he said that. But once he had said it, we knew. So we were planning for it. And, I loved having him there. He's so much energy. But, he wanted to go in different directions. I don't blame him. You can't make somebody want to do it. So London, I thought he'd be a different energy, but there's like a light switch that goes off on him when he gets in the booth. It's like he's back in the game. And we've noticed that, that's why, I kind of described it for me. it's hard to describe this like any other assignment I've ever had. You really feel like you're part of it, in some way. And I think like it's his way to connect back in, and you could see this energy come out of him. And, not unlike D'Angelo, I mean, they both were really good at this because they both played for so long. They're calling stuff out before it happens. So I'm starting to I got that with D'Angelo, and I'm getting it with London now. And, his energy's been great, and he's really into this team. I mean, here's someone who played for a lot of different teams. He's really into our team, which I think is really important too.
No doubt. All right, let's get on to the team just a little bit. Bram, not many coaches in the league have what they call full control. Did you believe that was an effective method before they gave it to Ron? Do you still believe it now?
So I think initially to hire him, that's what it had to be, because I think he was going to be a sought after candidate. And they tried to preemptively hire him, which they did basically, because he was available, you'll recall, midseason. And I'm pretty sure he would have had some other opportunities, and they decided this is what they wanted. And this is what he wanted, to take the job. So I think if they wanted him, this is what they had to do. So I don't really take issue with that decision. Now, why do you ask? Because there's been some missteps with the roster. I mean, I think that's kind of everybody.
I guess I'd suggest that a GM's job is to prepare the team for the future, and a head coach's job is to win ball games right now. And there are plenty of people that would suggest that the two don't meet in the middle.
In what regard? Because I think the acquisition of Wentz is for now and the future. They're playing a lot of young guys. He's not gone overboard bringing in a lot of different veterans, which I would actually criticize him for recently, especially on defense. So I think he's actually been pretty consistent about building a roster and not doing anything particularly rash. He did feel as if he had to get a quarterback. I think we all felt that way, that he had to go get a quarterback. The decision to acquire Wentz certainly is worth looking into. I know it wasn't their first choice, but they couldn't acquire Russell Wilson. So, you have to move forward and do something else. And so far, it's very early. I think they've been validated in that decision. And like any other front office, there's hits and misses with everything. They hit hard on Logan Thomas and J.D. McKissick. Their draft this year is looking like a hit right now, considering who their first round pick is, what their third round pick was looking like, what some of the lower tier picks may be. I don't see them spending a tremendous amount of money on other people's players to fill holes. So they are building from within. So I actually think that has taken a longer term vision than maybe he's getting credit for, but maybe you see it otherwise.
No, I think that's reasonable. I just, as one of, I think, only two teams left to do it that way. I was just curious your thoughts on the way you build an organization. A lot of people don't see it working. I think maybe Belichick's the only one that still kind of has that control.
Yeah, Belichick has it. I mean, I would almost argue that the Cowboys setup is very unique because the owner is literally the GM. So there's some, I hear you. I guess everybody has their own kind of way of going about it. This got popular for a little while. It's what it is now. I'll nitpick some of the roster decisions and some of the things that have occurred for sure. I don't know why Tim Settle isn't here right now. I couldn't tell you why Brandon Sheriff wouldn't take their money. I mean, I know they tried to give it to him. I don't know. I think there's other ones you could look at. And then, they've had a couple of sightings where you go, that one hasn't worked out the way it was planned. And they've had other ones where they've had deals that have worked out really well. So, like any other team, I don't really think there's been a massive misstep here. And considering this is what the deal was, if you wanted to get him in 3 years ago or 2 years ago, then you have to live with it. And I don't take a tremendous amount of issue with where the roster is right now. There are holes for sure. And there are some spots like linebacker I thought they would improve. And corner, I think they need another veteran. But I think you could find that on any roster and go, they should do this, they should do that, when they don't accomplish everything you hope they would.
I see a lot of the fan base mentioning to me with the defensive struggles and Jack Del Rio, does Ron give the coaching staff too much leeway? There are a lot of people that mention to me they wish that Ron would be more hands-on with the defense. If the scheme, are we at a chicken and the egg crossroad? Everybody says it's scheme. Some people say players have to do what they do. Should Ron be intervening here? Does he give them too much leeway?
I don't feel like he's a hands-off coach.
Okay.
For me to comment on what happens in the meetings would be irresponsible because I don't know, honestly. So I don't know how hands-on or hands-off he is. He does not present himself to me in a way that he isn't embedded in everything that is happening. I think he lets his coordinators do their job, but I don't think that he's hands-off, and I don't think that he's a ceremonial leader at all. So he's the one actively trying to pursue relationships with specific players on the team and trying to build that kind of rapport. Specifically with people like Wentz, specifically with people like Allen and Chase Young and some of the others as well. So, is he letting them do their jobs? Yeah. And frankly, like a lot of the people on Jack's staff are from the Carolina pipeline. So it's not like they weren't playing the system that he was building down there anyway. So I don't think he's hands off. Only Del Rio and Rivera could answer whether, he truly is and whether that there's a friction there. I don't get that sense, but again, like it'd be irresponsible of me to try to guess at what's going on there.
Chris Baker on our Monday show told me he generally puts it on the players to execute, but is concerned now that maybe the game has moved on from Jack Del Rio and his thoughts are antiquated on putting defenses together. Do you see it that way?
No, I don't. I don't see it that way. I will hear them out in rewatching over and over that most of the big plays were just blown assignments. But that is a reflection of the coaches too. So like last week when they called out Jamin Davis, which I felt was just honest. I don't think he played very well in week 1. I felt like it was intended to get him to focus. And he had a big assignment this past week with DeAndre Swift. Like it was going to be basically his assignment in coverage, and that was a key person that they needed to contain if they were going to win. That's how I read that. Like that's all I read that as. But when it doesn't go well across the board on the scoreboard, it looks like it's the coaches calling out the players, and now the finger pointing is going to go back, and that's going to be a problem. There's a double-edged sword. I've been in the media for a long time. I know how this goes, and I thought this week is going to be a very big week to make sure everybody's still unified. And that did concern me when it went that way. But that's all I thought it was just to light a fire under a first-round pick that could have blown up in their face. Like, I don't honestly see schematically a problem. I see too many missed assignments, but I also am not going to throw that just on the players. I think the Lions loss was a total team loss. It was a breakdown across the board. And my concern when people get called out is, well, when that happens, are you willing from the coaching staff then to take responsibility? And if you actually listened to Del Rio yesterday, it was as if he kind of learned that maybe that wasn't the best way to go, because he started getting asked about other specific players. We could nitpick William Jackson III for the way he's played for a year plus. And he was asked about him, and his answer was, I don't want to go down this road of talking publicly about all of these different players, because I think he realized last week ended up maybe not intended to be a mistake, but it ended up being a mistake because of what happened. So I also, fall under the category of everyone needs to take responsibility when you're down 22-0 at half. Like that's not one person's fault. That's everybody's fault. And I did hear him say in that answer too, we need to get better. We need to do this. We need to do that. And I think that is acknowledgement that, the coaches need to prepare everybody too, that you can't blame. We can't start blame gaming in week 2. So I'm not saying Chris Baker's wrong, nor would I even for a second try to trump his football knowledge. But I would tell you, from what I'm watching, I don't actually see schematic problems. I do see a lot of mistakes. I'm just not willing to just throw those on the players, because when they happen over and over, there's a coaching aspect of that too that they weren't prepared.
Does Washington now have the best collection of offensive weapons in the NFC? I mean, it's odd, right? Because this was a team that had planned on, as I see it, to be a really good defensive team, run the ball, and grind out ball games. And this is a team that's now primed to be in shootouts every week.
I'm hoping their defense could be a little better than they've been, for sure. Like, I don't think they're going anywhere if the defense is going to be bottom 6, in scoring defense and yards allowed and big plays, and the run average is utterly ridiculous. So they're not going anywhere. If I don't care how good their offense is, then that happens. I do believe it's the best skill set that they've personally had top to bottom in a long time. And that's without having seen Cole Turner and having seen Brian Robinson in real games. So I agree with that. And I don't know, I think I said before the season, after watching them in the preseason, I said, I'll put them top to bottom against just about anybody. Like, you can tell me this team has a better running back here or a better number one receiver there, but show me the group top to bottom that's as good as this one. And I think it's showing so far. I mean, how many points they've scored. Look at Wentz's numbers. Look how comfortable he looks, actually. So I think all of that has kind of added up to they're a dynamic personnel group. If their defense starts to hold up its end of the bargain, and frankly, if their special teams doesn't have a handful of ridiculous mistakes in one game, which I think corroborated with what happened last week in Detroit too, then they could be a very, I think, competitive team. I think we all see the warts, and I think we all see the holes. So are they a complete roster? No. So this kind of goes back to, if you're asking questions about the roster management, like, I think they recognize that there's holes on the roster too. But they certainly they're giving themselves a fighting chance on offense now. And at times, it's hard to know because it's just 2 weeks, but at times they look unstoppable throwing the ball. So I like what I see. I like the way it's going. And I have to believe that the defense is going to be playing better and more consistently than it has, and hopefully in the very near future, and specifically Sunday, because they're in trouble if they miss a bunch of assignments against this team coming up.
Before we get you out of here, I'm just curious if you've got a couple keys that you're looking at. If the Commanders pull out a victory on Sunday, it will have been because of why?
I don't want to simplify it to the big plays, but it's these guys run the same thing over and over and over and over. They're just really, really good at it. Like, Hurts has become a more accurate passer, which makes them more dangerous than they were when I watched them a year ago. That said, like, you've got to keep him in the pocket. He still needs to throw the ball. He has to be under a little bit of duress. And there is so much on the linebackers here this weekend. So much. Their decision-making is everything here. Does Hurts have the ball? Does he not have the ball? Did Sanders get the ball? Are you buying Sanders with the ball? And if you are and selling out towards that, you're in big trouble if he has time to throw, specifically to Brown over your head in the middle of the field where they are killing people right now. So I think the return of Cam Curl's a very big deal because he might as well be a linebacker here. I think Jamin Davis and Cole Holcomb and potentially David Mayo in the run game is going to be enormous, pivotal players in this game. And the only other thing I would watch out for them offensively is Goddard's very good, but the way they go about getting him the ball is extremely creatively. They will line him up and run these kind of very awkward screens to him where you just kind of lose him in coverage. He gets forgotten at times because of all these RPOs and what you're worried about. And so I just feel like this is a discipline game. They have the lack of discipline they had in Detroit. They're going to get scored on a lot again, and they're going to give up a lot of yards, and then they are going to be in a shootout, and good luck. But if they have way more discipline and don't give up the enormous plays, I actually like their chances this week. And I'll also just say this, publicly, like, the season felt like, in terms of just the intensity at practice, from what I got to see this week, it started this week. Like, they know what everybody's saying. They know that the national media are calling for a blowout. They know that they're a big underdog at home. They know the Eagles are bussing people down here. Like, they're aware of what they're walking into. And trust me when I tell you, the intensity when you see it, and it's there. So I'm really hopeful that translates into a very physical, probably close game, but it's going to be up to them. They miss these assignments again, where whoever you want to blame for it, they miss these assignments again. They will lose. They will not control that offense. They play better. They play more button down. These linebackers get their assignments right. They don't lose people like Goddard. They get Hurts in the pocket and keep them in there. Then I think they got a real good shot to knock them off.
Excellent. One last one is Schweitzer. Is he going to play center or guard this week? Do you know?
My assumption is he'll be playing center, but I guess we'll see. I think that'll, largely be dependent if they feel comfortable that Trey Turner is good to go, and I think he is. So assuming that's the case, Schweitzer would be the center, but they'll have Wes Martin and probably this new center they signed up, and it's possible they could rotate. I don't think they want to, but it's possible they could rotate around a little bit.
Bram, you're the best, man. I appreciate you giving me some time today. Good luck on the call Sunday.
Thanks, Doug.